Welcome to Royal Lovers. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and show some love to royalty. I am your host Zane. Today let's delve into the recent royal happenings, starting with a new portrait that has been making the rounds. Buckingham Palace has just unveiled a new-to-us portrait of King Charles, captured last November before his cancer diagnosis. In this image, King Charles is seen in his Field Marshal No. 1 ceremonial dress uniform, proudly adorned with a chest full of medals. This portrait was released to commemorate Britain's Armed Services Day, which was celebrated on Saturday, June 29th. As the newly crowned king, Charles is now the head of Britain's armed forces, which is a role steeped in tradition and respect. But beyond the ceremonial duties, King Charles also has a personal connection to the forces. He was a naval officer back in the day. Although he never saw combat, unlike his son Prince Harry, his time in the Navy is a part of his royal narrative. Now, while we can understand the idea behind releasing a new photo of the king in his dress uniform for Armed Services Day, it does open up a discussion. Would a different kind of photo have been more meaningful? Instead of focusing on King Charles with his chest full of medals, many of which are for things like attending a jubilee, what if the palace had released a more personal photo? Perhaps one featuring Charles with young soldiers on a military base, a photo that would have truly celebrated the men and women who serve. Not to give the palace free ideas, but it's an intriguing thought, isn't it? A striking portrait indeed, but could a different kind of photo have been more meaningful? As we move on to the next part of our discussion, let's ponder on that. Stay tuned, there's plenty more royal chatter to come. Let's delve into the significance of the medals on King Charles's chest. Adorning his ceremonial dress uniform, these medals are a testament to his association with the British Armed Forces. However, it's worth noting that not all of these medals are combat-related. Some, in fact, are awarded for attendance at ceremonial events like a jubilee. Among these, the Order of the Garter Star, one of the highest orders of chivalry, sits proudly. It's a symbol of the king's commitment to service and duty. Yet it needs to be clarified that this does not necessarily translate to combat experience. Charles served as a naval officer in his younger years, but unlike his son Prince Harry, he never saw active combat. Then there's the Queen's Service Order, a New Zealand honour sitting next to the Order of the Garter Star. This was awarded to him for public service, another testament to his dedication to his role. There's also the Queen's Jubilee Medal, a medal given to commemorate significant milestones in Queen Elizabeth's reign. This particular medal, like many others on his chest, is not related to any military service. Observing this array of medals, one might start to question the image they project. A chest full of medals might traditionally signify a wealth of military experience. However, in the case of King Charles, many of these medals are symbolic of royal duties and ceremonial events rather than active service. Perhaps a different image might have been more fitting for Armed Services Day. Instead of a portrait steeped in ceremony, a personal photo of Charles interacting with young soldiers on a military base could have been a more authentic representation. After all, Armed Services Day is about honoring the men and women who serve, and what better way to do that than to highlight their interactions with their king? So, a chest full of medals indeed, but what do they really represent? It's a question worth pondering as we navigate the complex tapestry of royal symbolism and military tradition. On Britain's Armed Services Day, a statement from the king is expected, but there was a surprising absence. Yes, you heard it right. King Charles remained curiously silent on this significant day. It's a departure from the norm that has left many scratching their heads. Traditionally, the reigning monarch, as the head of Britain's armed forces, acknowledges the service and dedication of the men and women in uniform. It's a day when the royal voice is heard, resonating with gratitude and respect. But this year, the voice we usually hear was conspicuously absent. So what does this mean? It's hard to say. King Charles, a naval officer back in his day, although he never saw combat, has always shown reverence for the armed forces. His silence, therefore, is not a sign of disregard, but perhaps something else entirely. Some speculate that his recent health issues might have played a part. Yet, the palace has given no official explanation for the king's silence. It's also worth noting that the king's absence was not filled with another royal voice. It wasn't his son, Prince Harry, a veteran himself, or his wife, Queen Camilla, who stepped in. Instead, the responsibility fell on no one. This unexpected void has left many wondering if this signals a shift in tradition or merely a one-time oversight. Now, don't get me wrong. the absence of a statement from King Charles does not diminish the importance of Armed Services Day. The day still stands as a testament to the bravery and dedication of Britain's servicemen and servicewomen, but the lack of a royal voice, the King's voice, has left a noticeable gap. So on a day usually marked by royal recognition, we were left with a portrait of the King in his Field Marshal No. 1 ceremonial dress and a silence that spoke volumes. A surprising turn of events, with no words from the King himself. In the absence of King Charles, Queen Camilla stepped up to the plate, issuing a video statement. This was a significant moment, not just because it was Armed Forces Day and a royal was expected to honor the servicemen and servicewomen, but because it was the first time in quite some time that many of us have heard the Queen speak for an extended period. Queen Camilla, although not a stranger to public speaking, has often maintained a quieter presence in the public eye, especially when compared to her husband, King Charles. This video statement, however, was a departure from her usual reticence. One could say it was a breath of fresh air from the usual royal protocol. In her address, the Queen's voice was steady and warm, carrying a sense of sincerity that resonated deeply with those who listened. She spoke with conviction, expressing her admiration and respect for the men and women who serve in the armed forces. Her words were a testament to her deep appreciation for their service, their dedication, and their sacrifice. As she spoke, one could not help but notice a minor issue with her sibilance, a slight hissing sound on the S and sh sounds. This is a common speech characteristic, and in no way detracted from the power and resonance of her message. If anything, it added a touch of authenticity to her address, a reminder that even royalty are human, with their own unique quirks and idiosyncrasies. This was certainly a different Armed Forces Day, with King Charles absent from the podium and Queen Camilla delivering the royal address. Yet it was a change that was perhaps refreshing in its novelty. A king's portrait, no matter how grand, could not replace the power of a spoken word, a personal message delivered with sincerity and respect. A rare moment indeed, hearing Queen Camilla speak at length. A refreshing change, don't you think? So, an interesting Armed Services Day with some notable departures from tradition. We began our journey today with the unveiling of a new portrait of King Charles. Dressed in his Field Marshal No. 1 ceremonial dress uniform adorned with a chest full of medals, the King was presented in a light that's both regal and military. We delved into the significance of these medals, each one a testament to the King's dedication and service. Yet we also considered the idea of presenting a different image of the King, perhaps one that is more personal, showing him amidst the young soldiers on a military base, an image that serves to honor the men and women who dedicate their lives to serving their nation. A surprising turn of events unfolded when King Charles chose to remain silent on Armed Services Day. Usually we would expect a statement from the King, a few words to acknowledge and honor the servicemen and servicewomen of Britain. But this year the King chose to let the spotlight shine on Queen Camilla. Queen Camilla stepped up to the plate and delivered a heartfelt video statement. For many of us, it was a rare opportunity to hear her speak at length. Her words were a tribute to the resilience and courage of Britain's armed forces, and they resonated with many. In the grand scheme of things, perhaps it's not about who speaks, but what is said. Queen Camilla's statement was a poignant reminder of the sacrifices made by those in the armed forces. And while the King's silence was noticeable, it also allowed for a different voice to be heard. As we conclude today's video, we reflect on these key points and the narratives they weave. Each element, from the new portrait to the absence of King Charles's statement, paints a unique picture of this year's Armed Services Day. Thank you everyone for watching the video. Show some love by subscribing and sharing the video. Don't forget to leave a comment. I am your loyal host Zane, signing off.